Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberly Hepner and we're heading into the end of the month. Today's July 20th and when we're not on air you can always come and visit us at www.arh.noaa.gov or simply type in weather.gov. That might be the easier way to tell your friends and then click on the destination of your choice. In just a moment, I know that we mention these web pages all the time. I'm just going to show you the ARH website that you can get to when you're on the internet, and hopefully that'll pique your interest to go search us on the internet later. You can always reach us on our weather line. We have a 1-800-472-0391 if you'd like to get your information via the phone line, and you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And now in order to get to these pages, all you'd have to do is type in this website address right here, arh.noaa.gov/social media. So in just a moment, I'm going to show you the page that will come up, and hopefully you can see this. But basically, what you're looking for is the Alaska Region headquarters. You know that we're there. And then we have our information. If you scroll down the page, you will highlight all the information and data, and then you can also click on it to navigate to the destination. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to bring up your slides here for the satellite. But before we get to that, I'm going to just go over quickly. The fire weather is just again across the eastern part of the Alaska Range and a small area across the Kenai. Other than that, the rain has kept things at bay for the next day. So stay tuned as we are going to be drying up and getting quite hot tomorrow. So that might change for your Tuesday forecast. All right, now looking out towards the west to see what's heading our direction. Across the Bering here, a large area of high pressure is situated with a low pressure just across the central part of the Aleutians. Putting this in motion, you'll see this moisture streaming up ahead of the low pressure that's situated out there. But this ridge of high pressure across the Bering is keeping this from making much progress north. It has pulled some clouds up into the central areas this afternoon with some rain showers along the leading front. However, there's ridging all around this low pressure, so it's kind of drying out a bit. Now, closer to home, you can see there's a large plume of moisture. We had a cold front that moved across most of the mainland and has cleared, and now the surface low associated with the upper level system, which is kind of stretching off, and the jet stream is going to be shoving this base of the low, and a cutoff low will form, and that will continue to push this low pressure system towards the southeast. So they're starting to get some cloud cover across the southeast, and a few showers are moving into that area. This moisture is kind of wrapping around the northern panhandle towards Yakutat, so a few showers are continuing to fire up along the northern panhandle. Now putting that into motion one more time, and you can see that moisture streaming across, and this other colder air mass was coming into the northwestern coast, but we had this clearing right across the southwest and south central areas that with the surface ridge that's moving across, that has allowed things to dry out and get maximum heating this afternoon. So very warm temperatures across the southern areas of the state. Now just this plume of moisture has got a little bit of a break across the Alaska Peninsula as well. So they were able to warm up to their maximum potential today. Now looking at the surface charts today, here's this ridge that I was talking about. This extends from the Bristol Bay area all the way back over to the Alcan border. So very nice temperatures and nice conditions all across the state. We did have some gusty wind conditions across the western part of the Gulf as these isobars were kind of tight along the backside of this low pressure system. And here's the front right approaching the Dixon entrance area, and on towards the north side of it, those wraparound showers up near Yakutat, the northern Panhandle. Now there is another stationary front draped across the northern coastal areas back through the northwest, so they're still keeping quite cool this afternoon, with cloud cover staying along the Bering Strait, including the Seward Peninsula. So they stayed kind of cool for yet another day. Across the Bering areas, they're kept in low clouds and stratus mainly, but fairly quiet wind-wise, as this low pressure system is kind of losing momentum and decaying as it moves to the north. Now, as we head into your forecast for tonight, don't expect much change with this system here. There's not a whole lot driving it, and this cold front is just kind of keeping it in place with this other ridge that's just slowly breaking down and shifting towards the east. So with all the areas that cleared out today, they'll see a large diurnal range as we go into the overnight time frame, as temperatures will be allowed to cool quite nicely. Now across the southeastern areas, this low pressure system in the eastern part of the Gulf is going to continue to slowly move towards the east, so shower activity will continue across the southeastern areas through the nighttime. And then as we head towards the morning, these showers across the northern area should begin to taper off, and all across the mainland will experience a very nice day, even across the north. This frontal boundary isn't going to approach probably until the later part of the afternoon Monday. So the warmer temperatures are actually going to stretch from the northwestern coast on over to Kaktuvik or along the eastern parts of the Beaufort Sea coast. So they're going to see temperatures warming up into the mid-60s and close to 70 across most of the state with these clear skies here, and we'll get to those temperatures in more detail in just a moment. Now looking across the Bering, not much change here. Here's the low pressure system. This is going to be decaying, like I said, and there's going to be light rain showers occurring in the vicinity of that low pressure. Otherwise, these winds across the Gulf waters are going to be tapering off, and it'll be relatively nice for most of the day on Monday. Now, as we head into your forecast for Tuesday, this low pressure system is going to start moving this cold air mass into the north and western parts of the state. So the Seward Peninsula on over towards the Beaufort Sea coast, they're going to see their temperatures cool back down on Tuesday. So the warm temperatures are going to be short-lived for the north and west coast. However, on Tuesday, we'll get another very warm day all across South Central with increasing clouds ahead of this front that's pushing through later on Tuesday. Now across the southeast and the Panhandle area, they'll see possible some light shower activity just in the mornings near the southern channels, but this will clear out and wind up being a fairly nice day for the southeast as well. Now Tuesday across the southwestern areas, that rain is going to move from the Seward Peninsula on back towards the Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay area. Just bring light rain. Total should be around 1/10 of an inch or less at first. We might see heavier rains more across the Brooks Range and just south of the low pressure system. Across the Alaska Peninsula, increasing clouds will be on its way with light shower activity across the eastern Aleutians and across the western areas. They're going to stay socked in fog all the way through Tuesday, as ridging is going to be over both the Bering and the Gulf of Alaska. The temperatures for this afternoon were quite warm. We warmed up a little bit more than what's on the map here as we put these temperatures out at 4 p.m., but the Kenai and King Salmon areas were able to get up to 67 during the afternoon hours, and quite a few of these places probably reached a little bit warmer than what we have in the map. But essentially, the southeast were experiencing temperatures in the mid-50s to upper 50s. Very nice for them if you like the cooler temperatures. And then all across the Gulf Coast, the northern Gulf Coast areas and the western Gulf saw temperatures in the mid to upper 60s. Across the central interior, a little bit slower to warm with temperatures reaching up into the mid-50s by 4 o'clock this afternoon. Along the northern coastal areas, they saw the coolest temperatures in the mid-40s, but we did see a temperature warm up in Barrow to 37, and they've been just about that temperature over the last few days. Now across to the Seward Peninsula, a slow change over to the lower 50s and down to the southwestern areas where they saw the temperatures get very warm, where it cleared off in the Bristol Bay area up into the mid-60s. Across the Alaska Peninsula, where they were right around the mid and upper 50s, on out through the Aleutian chain as well in the lower to mid-50s. Now as we head into your temperatures tonight, like I said, large diurnal ranges will be noticed most across the northern parts of the Panhandle and along the south central areas back towards the southwest, where temperatures are going to drop into the mid-40s. So it's going to be quite a change. And then across the central interior, going to see temperatures in the upper 40s, and along the coastal areas in the upper 40s. I'm sorry, in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Now across the southeast, expect temperatures to creep up into the upper 40s to lower 50s. The Alaska Peninsula will be in the 50s as well, and the Aleutian chain is not going to have much change. They're going to be in the upper 40s overnight. And then tomorrow, very warm temperatures. Here they are across the state in the upper 60s for the southwest, south central, central interior. And here's those warm temperatures just north of the Brooks Range. And what's happening here is we have just a warm air mass that's going to move very quickly across the northern areas, and then it's going to continue to move off. So they're going to have a brief warm up into the mid 60s, which is kind of unusual for the Arctic coastal areas. Now the southeast, like I said, they should be seeing some breaking of the clouds possibly for tomorrow's highs reaching up into the mid 60s, and across the Bering mainly temperatures will be in the mid 50s. Alaska Peninsula will be in the upper 50s to lower 60s. Now your flying weather for tomorrow, much clearer than the previous days, with MVFR being confined to the north and western coast, and that's probably late in the day when that front finally moves forward. And with the low fog and stratus areas, we have IFR and MVFR conditions across much of the Bering. And during the morning time frame, as that front is pushing further into the southeast, we'll see MVFR conditions possibly clearing to VFR late in the day. Now taking a look at your passes individually, we have MVFR to VFR for Anaktuvik Pass, and Adigan Pass will also go MVFR to VFR late in the day. And we'll see Lake Clark go to MVFR to VFR, and VFR conditions for Rainy Pass. And Windy Pass will both be, MVFR to VFR, and Isabel will also be VFR. Now the Mentasta Pass will be MVFR, and Tenedo will MVFR to VFR. Most areas are improving. Portage Pass will be at VFR all day, and Chilkoot and White Pass will both go MVFR to VFR later in the day. Now taking a look at your freezing levels, it's warmed up across the entire mainland. We have 6,000 feet level just right off the coast there, dropping or increasing to 12,000 as you head towards the southern part of the state, and across the Gulf waters between 8,000 and 12,000. The Bering is looking at mainly 10,000 feet all across the area, except a little slightly warmer as you head towards the Alaska Peninsula. Now your icing for tomorrow is going to be associated with the front that's pushing in, but that's going to be later in the day, and it's going to be above 10,000 feet. Across the rest of the state should be fairly clear. We might have a little area above 10,000 across the central part of the Aleutians with that other low, and then as that low across the southeastern Gulf moves in, we'll have some light icing possibly above 10,000 feet. Here's the jet stream. It's starting to make a little bit of a change. We have a deep northwesterly flow across the western part of the Bering and a southwesterly flow towards the southern parts of the state. And this is what's going to be helping driving those low pressure systems off towards the east. It cuts off from the Arctic jet stream, which has been, for the last week, this has been flowing towards the western part of the Gulf. So here it is cut off, and the strongest flow is basically right around that Alaska Peninsula. So here's the flow at 9,000 feet. Have a high pressure just to the south of the Alaska Peninsula, so a southwesterly flow across much of the state for tomorrow, and then out of the north across the northern Gulf, and a change of direction around that low pressure system near the southeast. Across the rest of the Bering, just a very light and weak flow north of this low pressure system that's out there. So westerly flow at the 3,000 foot level, very similar to the map just a moment ago. And then your turbulence mainly are going to be confined in this northwestern corner below 10,000 feet late in the day. All right, I'll be back in just a moment with your marine forecast.
Convective activity is popping up, or maybe there's ice in the clouds, or low ceilings. Can you get through it safely, or should you be on the ground waiting out the weather? As an instrument-rated pilot, these are questions you've got to be able to answer. Something to keep in mind anytime you're getting radar images off the web. Get the national composite image first, before you look at individual radar sites. That way you'll be suspicious if an individual site doesn't show weather you saw on the national composite. But raw information isn't going to help unless you know what it means. You've got to be able to interpret as well as acquire the information. You've got to develop a three-dimensional view of the weather because so much of it is influenced by what's happening in the upper atmosphere. Be aware when you start your preliminary weather planning that the Weather Channel and weather maps in newspapers are only concerned with surface weather. If you want a real synopsis of what's going on, you have to know what's happening at altitude too. We know that upper-level winds generally flow from west to east. But the winds don't flow in a straight line. In some places, the flow swings south, in others, north. The flows that swing south are upper atmosphere troughs. The ones that swing north are upper atmosphere ridges. These curves affect the weather going on underneath them. An upper-level trough tends to make the weather underneath worse, and a ridge tends to bring good weather. The best source of information on upper air movement is the 500 millibar or 18,000-foot chart. It clearly shows the airflow pattern at altitude that's affecting the weather below. Without upper air support, such as a trough, surface lows may be relatively calm. A trough can also bring clouds and precip to an area that shows no frontal activity on the surface charts. To make sense of all this, and understand how changing atmospheric conditions may affect their flights, instrument pilots have to be part-time meteorologists. Well, admittedly, most pilots don't care anything about meteorology. All we care about is answering the question, can I make it? Can I get where I'm going? Well, that's something that no briefer can tell you, because even if they know the weather, they don't know the capabilities or limitations of you as a pilot or your aircraft. That's why you have to be able to interpret meteorological information for yourself. Making the right go, no-go decision on the ground is important. Even more important is continued evaluation of that decision in flight. Here, the challenge is deciding whether to continue, divert, or return. Our flight crew is certainly prepared for the challenge. After determining conditions supported a go flight decision, they came to the airport ready for the tactical portion of their plan.
Okay, what's the latest on the weather?
Conditions are about the same, marginal all along the route. 3 to 5 in haze most of the way, and the forecast calls for the possibility of thunderstorms in the area until 2300 Zulu.
So what else is new?
Yeah, briefer says they're starting to get some returns west to Cleveland, and it's moving in our direction.
If ceilings and visibility are high enough, we could always go VFR. That way we'll be able to see the rain shafts. If we get up high enough, we'll be able to see the buildups and go around them. I don't know, though. I don't like that 3 to 5 mile viz, though. We're going to be doing more than 2 miles a minute over the ground.
Yeah, you're right, but we don't want to file IFR and then be stuck in solid clouds either. Kind of tough to see the weather that way. Now, the tops are running up to 12,000 now, and thunderstorms will be even higher. Good news is the ceilings are broken. So if we file for 10,000, we may be in the tops from time to time, but at least we should be able to eyeball the nasty stuff.
Right you are. What about the freezing level?
Yeah, good question. Let's see, 17,000 is the lowest it gets.
Okay. Sounds good to me. It's definitely going to be cooler up there. And we'll be able to avoid most, if not all, of the haze. Now, if I can just keep us out of those clouds with hard edges, well, we should have a pretty good ride.
Let's analyze the key elements of their planning.
I don't know, though. I don't like that 3 to 5 mile viz, though. We're going to be doing more than 2 miles a minute over the ground.
What's the relation of speed to weather avoidance? Of course, it can help you avoid the weather. If the forecasts are correct, their debonair will be safely tied down before the weather hits, while a Cub flying the same route would probably find the convective activity blocking its path. But when you're trying to dodge weather and deviate around buildups, speed can make maneuvering around what you see more difficult. Consider speed and maneuverability when formulating your plans. And you always have the option of pulling back the power and reducing cruise speed. Remember, as in VFR, see and avoid is the best anti-collision strategy for dealing with convective activity.
Now, the tops are running up to 12,000 now, and thunderstorms will be even higher. Good news is the ceilings are broken. So if we file for 10,000, we may be in the tops from time to time, but at least we should be able to eyeball the nasty stuff.
Right you are. Oh, what about the freezing level?
The Mark I eyeball remains the best weather avoidance tool aboard any GA aircraft. Pilots should try to fly at altitudes where they can see the weather. But sometimes cumulus clouds can build faster than you can climb. You'll need a plan if you can't stay on top. And if you fly high enough, you may run into the freezing level. You'll need an exit strategy if there's a chance of encountering icing. Know where the freezing level is, even if it's nowhere near your cruising altitude. It can help indicate whether a thunderstorm is likely to produce hail by its relation to the cloud tops. If there is a possibility of hail, avoid flying under anvils. This will generally involve deviation to the southwest, but make sure to give that side of the storm a wide berth, because that's the quadrant where the tornadoes form. And what did our pilot mean about clouds with hard edges? A cloud's appearance can help indicate its character. The harder the edges, the nastier the ride. For example, stratus clouds, characterized by their flat, layered look, indicate smooth air, with the downside of poorer visibility because of lack of air circulation. Cumulus are marked by vertical development. If the edges are wispy and indistinct, the ride will be bumpy, but not hazardous. Cumulus clouds on their way to becoming thunderstorms can build at more than 3,000 feet per minute and can give a very rough ride. Hard cauliflower edges and defined anvil tops are characteristics of the turbulent cumulonimbus, definitely a cloud to be avoided. As is this, an altocumulus standing lenticular cloud. Only found in mountainous areas, usually on the lee side of a range, these have the hardest edges of all clouds and indicate extreme turbulence, especially below the cloud.
And welcome back to the show. Now on to your marine forecast. We'll start with the southeast for Monday. Lighter winds on Monday. After that front kind of weakens, we're going to see out of the north across the Lynn Canal area at 10 knots. And then as you head towards the southern channels, we'll see wind out of the northwest at 20 knots. The outer waters will be between 15 and 20 knots, all out of the northerly direction. Seas will be between 2 and 4 feet across the inner channels. Outer waters will see between 6 and 8 feet. As we head into your Tuesday, expect a change in direction. The outer waters will see out of the west to northwest flow between 10 and 15 knots and 10 to 15 knots across the inner channels. Seas will be 2 to 3 feet across the inner channels. Outer waters will see seas around 5 feet. And as we look at your western and northern Gulf waters, Prince William Sound will be out of the north at 10 knots, and lighter winds on your Monday forecast between 10 and 20 knots. No small crafts on Monday for you. The Cook Inlet will be between around 10 knots and 15 knots across the Barren Islands and Shelikof Strait. Seas across the Gulf waters will be between 4 and 5 feet. Prince William Sound at 2 feet, and the Cook Inlet as well. Shelikof Strait will be 3 feet, and the Barren Islands area will be around 3 feet. Heading into your Tuesday forecast, lighter wind speeds still as high pressure is in control, out of the south and westerly direction mostly, and the seas on this day will be between 3 and 4 feet across Cook Inlet, Barren Island, Shelikof Strait, and the Gulf waters will see right around 5 to 6 feet. Looking at your Alaska Peninsula forecast, lighter winds here out of the south to southwest and variable on both the Bering and Pacific side. Looking at seas across the Bering between 2 and 3 feet. Pacific side will be right around 5 feet on Monday. For your Tuesday forecast, it'll be out of the west to southwesterly direction, and then we'll see seas across the Bering side 4 to 5 feet and 6 feet across the Pacific side. Looking at your Aleutians, we will see very light wind speeds yet another day between 10 and 15 knots with seas between 4 and 6 feet across the entire area. Now looking at your Tuesday forecast, a westerly direction for all of the Aleutians, and seas will be between 3 and 5 feet. Quiet conditions across the central and northern part of the Bering as well. Out of the southwest, we do have a small craft right just to the south of Nunivak Island, and then we'll see seas between 3 to 6 feet, with the highest seas towards St. Matthews Island at 7 feet. Tuesday, a change of direction once again, out of the west to northwest and heading northerly as you get to the northern Bering. Seas on this day will be between 5 and 6 feet, primarily a little bit lower seas towards the Pribilof Islands at 4 feet. And then across the north and northwestern coast, we'll see small crafts across the Chukchi Sea and on towards the Kotzebue Sound. They'll get a little bit lighter and turn out of the southwest here, and seas will be between 7 and 9 feet. A little bit stronger winds will continue across the northern areas out of the south to southwest between 25 and 30 knots, brisk wind, and 20 knots towards the eastern Beaufort seacoast. And then as we head into your Tuesday, lighter wind speeds all across the area, so under small craft advisory for your Tuesday, and out of the north to northwest between 15 and 20 knots across the Kotzebue Sound to the Chukchi Sea, and then out of the west to north along the northern Beaufort seacoast. Now, looking at your seas on this day will be between 3 to 6 feet across the northwestern coastal areas and 2 to 3 feet across the eastern Beaufort Sea. Now, to recap your forecast once more for this evening, clearing will continue across much of the mainland with some shower activity across the northern panhandle. Rain will move in during the overnight hours across the southeast. And then across the west coast, they'll still see the clearing in the overnight hours. This low pressure system will bring some light rain towards the central Aleutians and not move very much as we head into your Monday forecast. This front won't come down into the northwest until late in the day. In the meanwhile, the entire mainland will have a chance to warm up to near 70 in a lot of locations across the central and south central area. The southeast will clear out late in the day as this low pressure shoves off to the east, and it'll get rather warm in the mid-60s for the southeast as well. Heading in to your Tuesday forecast, this front will go ahead and edge into the southwestern areas, bring some light showers and some clouds spreading towards the east as we head into the middle of the week. I'm Kimberly Hepner, and I hope to see you back here tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.